What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Curious Talk Podcast with Caleb Medusi. We all know 9/11 as the horrific day that 3,000 Americans died because of an attack on the United States. Today, I sat down with Jessica Trent, who lost her father that day, who worked in the World Trade Center. We talked about how she coped with her loss, how she's feeling today, and what she does to remember him. She was also featured on The Oprah Show. Stay tuned, watch the interview, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss another video. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Caleb Medusi here with the Curious Talk Podcast. So today I'm here with Jessica Trent. She lost her father in, unfortunately, the 9/11 attack when Bin Laden carried out that mission that crashed two planes to the Twin Towers. So we're here to talk more about that. Jessica, thank you for coming out today. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. Thanks for coming out.
Can
So,
can-
so first, I was
my
gonna say,
pleasure.
yeah, I kind of got broke through. Can you describe the person that your father was and what he did for the World Trade Center?
Um, well, my gosh, he was, well, for me, he was a provider. He was my coach. I played soccer in college, so he was a big driving force for that. He worked for Cantor Fitzgerald at the time, so he was constantly working. He came home. I mean, I don't even know how to put him into words. He played. He was drafted by the Celtics. He, oh God, I haven't talked about him in so long. Um, he touched everybody. When he passed away, I mean, there were thousands of kids that showed up because he coached CYO, AAU. He I
He
mean,
was
he
a superhero of the
touched,
community.
yeah, like he touched everybody. He always went out of his way. Like every year since 9/11, I always get, because he played over in Dublin after he was cut from the Celtics, and a guy from his team always messages me stories. Like he would go, like, he would be in a bar in Dublin in the early 80s, and like there would be like kids outside, and they would be like begging for money, and my dad would be like, I'll be right back. And he would go and bring them to like McDonald's and give them food. And he wouldn't even say anything. He would just like go back inside and be like, don't worry about what I did. Like he wouldn't even mention it. Like he's just that type of guy. Like he just doesn't want, he just went over and beyond to help people. And for me, he was just the disciplinary, like strict father. And like I never saw that side of him because he was like always so stern with me. So I, like, hearing those stories afterwards, I was like, oh my God, like he really touched a lot of people. But like for me, he was always like, you're grounded. And like he always was the stern, strict dad. And then like everyone's like, he's hilarious, he's this. And I'm like, where was this guy? You know, like, because I was in college when everything happened. And like I mean, I was on lockdown because I was the oldest of three, and he knew like I had to be, being a girl. He even said, like, I'm going to discipline your brother is different than I'm going to discipline you. You're a girl, you're the oldest. And I couldn't understand that. And now looking back, because like a lot of my friends have kids, and I'm like, oh my God, it's so different raising girls and boys, and just raising kids in general. And he
Yeah.
talked to me. He was like, even in sports, like he had a way of giving me constructive criticism rather than other people, because like I don't take any type of criticism well, but like he had a way of giving it without making you feel small. Like he just had that personality of talking
Giving
to
with
you without, yeah,
mhm.
like he was just so personable. But like, and then everybody, like I get different stories, and like I love hearing stories from about him that aren't just about basketball, that are about him. Like I mean, I guess he convinced an entire bar that the national anthem in Dublin was American Pie, and he had everybody singing American Pie, and he had them all drinking Long Island iced teas. And
Were you with him
he
in
kept,
Dublin, or was this before you were
no,
going?
no, no, this was he was playing basketball overseas
Oh, okay.
before. And I mean, he's just like he was a jokester, but like he got them all hammered off of Long Island iced teas. And I don't know if you're old enough, or if you drink Long Island iced teas, but they put you like, have one and you're done. And, like he kept telling the bartender, like, you're not making it right. And he just got behind the bar and made them for everybody. I mean,
Oh
that's the kind
man.
of guy he was. Yeah. And I mean, for Canner, the company he worked for, because he was all the way on the 104th floor, he was one of the older people that worked there, and he was only 40. So
Wow.
that's, yeah, and that's young and he was considered older for the
Hmm.
company that he worked for. But I
Wow.
mean,
Oh
it's
man.
just crazy. Yeah.
When you got that call saying that, was it a call? Did you see it on the news, and how
No,
did you react?
so I had been it was my first day of sophomore year, but I had already been in school for a couple of weeks because I was there for preseason for soccer.
Hmm.
So I was already adjusted, but like I had shown up just on time for business law. Like, I was it was the towers had already been hit. I just showed up on time because,
Oh.
you know, not knowing. And one of my friends, he knew my dad worked in the World Trade Center, and he's like, "What are you doing in class?" And I joked, I'm like, "Yeah, I know, I'm finally in class," because I kind of worked my way around not going to class as much as possible. And he's like, "No, the World Trade Center was hit." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "The World Trade Center was hit by a plane." And I'm like, it didn't even register to me because, like, I'm like, plane hit. I didn't even know what that meant. And you don't think terrorism acts or anything like that. And he's like, "You got to go." And I'm like, I don't know what you mean." He's like, "You have to go back to your dorm. Like the World Trade Center was hit." So I went back to my dorm room, and my phone was ringing. It was my mom. And she's like, "Dad called. He said that he was going to make it out. I'm sending for a car for you." Because where I was in upstate New York, and well, Westchester, and you have to get across bridges to get to Long Island, and it was just impossible to get through bridges. So I had to go take a ferry from in Connecticut, and my mom had gotten a call, but she didn't tell me the truth of what my dad actually had said because she knew. She told me what he said, I probably wouldn't have come home. So my best friend, my roommate, got in the car with me, and we took the ferry, and it was already, she's like, "Daddy said he was going to make it out," because he was on the 104th floor. So I didn't know the extreme of what had happened. I was standing there all, watching, obviously waiting for the car service to get there. And I'm watching the Twin Towers get hit over and over again, and they collapsing. And I'm like, "Oh, my dad, he's athletic. He can make it down the stairs. He's fine. He's fine. My mom said he made it out. He's going to make it out." So I'm thinking, you know, he's completely fine. My dad's perfectly, if anything, if he's not going to make it out, it's because he's helping someone. So I'm in complete denial. I didn't, I'm thinking, "Oh, he's fine." And so I get on the ferry completely unaware of what I was going to walk into. I get to my house, and it was already like it was a funeral. When somebody passes away, there's already like a ton of people at the house. There's already food. One of my brothers was already, because they were 10 and 12. One was crying. The other one was staring at a wall. And I was just like, this is so chaotic. So I took them out of the house because I'm like, this isn't where they need to be. And I took them to this like arcade. It was like a bowling alley type thing called Jillian's,
By this time,
where
were
there,
you convinced that he had already passed away?
no, I
Oh.
was still like, because my mom still hadn't told me what he had said on the phone. And because she was just, everyone had blocked her off, and she was, my mom kind of was in a like zombie mode, and everyone was by the phones waiting for phone calls, and they didn't know what was going on because it was so chaotic. And so I just took them to an arcade, and we played video games, and all they kept doing was playing
Games.
Twin Towers, just constantly going down. And it was over and over, just constantly seeing them being hit, which was, I mean, looking back, I'm like, Jesus, I don't even know how I brought my two little brothers to do that. And they won a big stuffed animal for my dad to come home to. And I went home that night, and I stayed at my best friend's house, who was my roommate in college, which was 5 houses down. in my hometown, and I stayed there, and I was up all night on the computer writing. Like, my dad's 6'2", he has brown hair, green eyes. If you've seen him, I'm thinking maybe he's disoriented, he couldn't get to a phone, he's in a hospital. You know, my family was in the city putting up those missing signs. You think maybe they couldn't, because my dad didn't have a cell phone. um you're thinking anything. You're thinking maybe he's in Jersey, maybe he, you know, you don't, because there were boats bringing people from all over the city. You're thinking anything at this point. You're grasping onto anything. And it was either, I think it was the next night at the Pierre Hotel. That's when Howard Ludnick, who was the CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald, held a meeting and said that nobody made it out from Cantor Fitzgerald. And my mom came back and brought me into the bedroom and told me, and I just said, you need to get out of my way. And I drove back to my college, and I stopped on the Whitestone Bridge, which I had my roommate, and then I had my 3 close friends behind me, and you could just see, and I see the smoke and smell everything that was coming from the city. And that's when she told me what my father had said, which was, you know, he's like, listen, there's smoke everywhere. I don't think I'm going to make it out of here. I love you and I love the kids. Just take care of my kids for me. And I said, you know, why wouldn't you tell me that? And she's like, I just didn't want, you know, you to worry. And I thought maybe he was going to make it out. But, you know, little by little, you learn more about what was really going on there. And they were trapped. Even if the towers didn't go down, they weren't going to make it out. It hit at the 84th floor, I think it was. So no matter what, anyone above that wasn't going to make it out. So they were trapped. So my dad
Yes.
wasn't going to make it out. He was, and we ended up finding a book, because we never found my dad, which is one of the hardest things. You know, not that we're like, oh, what if, you know, he's still alive, we know he's dead, but you know, there's this part of you that's like, oh,
You can't go visit him.
there's no closure, you know, like ground zeros are grave kind of. But you know, you're like, how did he die? Because you don't know how he went. You know, you're like, smoke inhalation, did he burn to death, did he go down with the building? You don't know. And that's like a horrible feeling, because all that's on his death certificate is homicide. And so we found this book, because, you know, my mom buys all these books and stuff, and it has moments before the North Tower collapsed, and we had it blown up because my mom knew the exact outfit he was wearing, because my brothers were supposed to go to work with him that day. And he was wearing this, he was wearing this gray shirt, and he was at the window next to a woman, and his hands were all black, and he was getting air. So he went down with the building. We know he was alive until the building went down. So
was there any type of relief when you knew that, hey, your brothers were not there, even though they were supposed to go to work with him that day? Or like,
well,
hey, thank God that they never went?
Well, I know that if they went, I would have been the only one left, because my mom has already tried numerous times to kill herself, and I know for a fact that she would have killed herself.
This is when
when
it happened, or was this later on?
Later on.
Oh, okay.
My mom had never taken any medication prior to this, and they put her on medication that night. She was hospitalized. She just couldn't deal with it. I mean, my parents were, I used to get embarrassed about my parents. Like, they used to go on date night once a week. They were very insane because they were younger. Like, my mom was 20 when she had me. My dad was 21. I mean, they used to hold hands and kiss, and I would be like, ew, you know, like all my guy friends liked my mom. All my girlfriends used to be like, your dad's hot. And I'd be like, that's disgusting. You know, like, I would be embarrassed. That's mortifying to me. I'm like, that's gross. And my mom very heavily depended on my dad for disciplining. She'd be like, I'm calling your father. He did all the financial, and even like for her, she's I don't want to say she's insecure, but like he just boosted her. She
Mhm.
very, and they
Made her
balanced each
flourish.
other out.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so she lost everything that day. And I stand by saying like I lost both parents that day, and it was hard to watch because the one thing he asked her to do was take care of her kids, and it's just she just she couldn't even take care of herself. It was hard. She tried the
Um,
best she could, but it was hard.
as a human being, it's not like, hey, it's not like something small. It's something
No.
that takes time and it takes time to heal. She's not going to get over it within
Well,
24
there's no
hours.
time limit. Right. There's no time
Yes,
limit on healing.
absolutely not. No, I agree. So on Oprah, your family mentioned that one of your coping mechanisms were extreme spending. Can we talk more about that if you don't mind?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Hmm. Yeah, it was. It's not some. Everyone has their own way of dealing with things. Some people are spending. Some people they lock themselves in a room. They don't want to talk to each other. So yeah, that's not something to be ashamed of in any way. It's something that it's what you get.
no, it's, it was just the fact that you're up at night when no one else is.
Hmm.
It's a quick fix.
Yeah.
Um, and it's almost like somebody put a price tag on your loved one's head,
Hmm. I
and
agree.
it's blood money. And you do you don't really know what to do with it. And
No amount of
then
money is
people,
going to replace him.
right, and that's, what people don't understand is they made us sit in a room and talk about everything that my father did as a father. It was a 1,000-page deposition, and they made a 10 and 12-year-old talk about what he did as a father, and made them discuss, like, put a price tag on my father, and it was awful. And basically was like, okay, this is what the amount of money your father's worth. And
Are you serious? I didn't know it was like that.
yep,
It's
it was a
literally a
thousand.
price tag.
Yep, it was a, yeah, Feinberg. It was, um, it was not fun. It was a 1,000-page deposition.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, you're
Yeah,
absolutely. I agree. It was a price tag. It was nothing less than a price tag. They
that's
how
all it
much?
was.
Wow.
It was hard.
Hmm.
And to go through and be like, oh, my dad, when I went through a hard time, because we had some sad deaths in our family before my dad died. We had suicides in our family, and I had to be like, my dad comforted me, and uh, you know, or he was the person I turned to when I had problems, or I had to discuss those things to them, and these are strangers, and he's not going to be there. Or when I walk down the aisle, he's not going to be there. I had to discuss those things and what that meant to me and my future. I had to discuss those things. It was
Who
awful.
was the organization, or was it the organization? Was it the government asking you to do this, or
Yeah,
what
it was
was it?
I think it was the Victim Compensation Fund. It
Yeah.
was Feinberg, his name
Mhm.
was.
Okay. Wow. What, so, did you feel this? Was your despair throughout the day? How was your mental health during the next few years of that time doing?
Um, well, I was still in college, and then once I moved to New York City, it was more in the nighttime. I dealt with everything with insomnia. I
Oh,
didn't sleep, and that's, it. Sorry, city, New York, ambulances, the sound. Um, and it was hard. No one else is up late at night.
you don't have a
Uh,
therapist in the middle of the night. Your friends are not in the middle of the night. You
no,
know.
none of my friends are up in the middle of the night. I mean, there's only so many times you can go out. I mean, I go out partying and stuff. I mean, I was in my early 20s, but I mean, yeah, I talk to therapists, but
Yeah.
the first thing they want to do is put you on medication, and that's
Medications.
the last thing I want to do. I want to talk about it. I'm like, here, listen to me. I've gone to so many different therapists. I've gone to the cognitive therapy. I've gone to, you know, I've tried like all different kinds. And I'm like, just listen to me. Don't
Yeah.
try and push things on me. Hear me out, and I found that going back to school, and because I went, the first time around I went for marketing, and then I went back for nutrition, and I found that with me eating better has helped me. And then I sound so earthy crunchy, but meditating has been
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah, it
Just shutting out
works.
the world. Yeah.
But I admire
But
that
it
you were
does.
able to go back to college during that
It
time.
I'm going to tell you, it was hard because, I was far removed. It was like 8, 9 years removed, and then to go back and to try and like concentrate, I'm like, oh my God, this
Mm.
isn't as easy. But no, if you have something that you are passionate about, because I have a hearty appetite, but I used to run it myself into the ground, like literally like running 13 miles a day. And they put me on sleep medication where I gained about 30 pounds in a month. And I wasn't eating my way into 30 pounds, but I felt trapped in my body and I didn't know what was going on. And it was the medication. And I didn't, I felt like I was trapped. I didn't know what was going on. And I'm like, I need to get a hold of my health. And I thought I was eating healthy. I'm like, oh, I'm going to eat, steamed spinach and brown rice and grilled turkey, and that's healthy. And I had no clue just how clueless I was about nutrition and health. And so I went back and I learned.
How long did
And
all this last? Did it last for a few years? Did you
the
finally were able to cope with it, or what? How long did
cope
this
with
hold?
what? Well,
Well,
I had to, it's an ongoing thing. Like for me, like I went to Guantanamo Bay last year.
mhm,
Um, that part of it is a chapter that, that's going to be something that helps close a chapter to my dad. Um, it's hard. You feel like you're completely done with it, and then all of a sudden they start comparing things to 9/11,
yeah,
and you're like, ugh.
exactly.
Or they put out a new movie, or they put out the movie The Report.
Even these
You
new
know,
extremist groups come out, it's also a reminder of
yeah,
9/11 as well.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Like I just watched a documentary hunting ISIS, and and I'm like hysterical crying because these kids are going over
Young.
there volunteering. They're not even part of the military. One kid died, and his family couldn't even get his body back,
Exactly, exactly. And once they're
and
in, a
they're
lot of them regret it.
volunteering.
Uh,
Yeah, and they're volunteering. They're volunteering. They have to get smuggled over there, and they're volunteering. And for me, I don't understand the hatred. Like I still to this day I don't know why my dad and those 2,979 people died. The For what was the cause? What was
absolutely. It's all about
I
hatred
don't understand how hate could cause
to
that.
go that far. It's so
And
yeah, it's just
and the sad thing is, like, I know you brought up like bin Laden and Obama. You wanted to talk about like when that whole day when because like my uncle had passed away 5 days after bin Laden was killed, and the last time I spoke to him was when bin Laden was killed, and he's like, we finally got him. And I remember people were looking at me weird because I was hysterical crying when Obama was talking
mhm.
to the nation, telling us that we got him. And people couldn't understand why I was crying. And I was in a restaurant and all the TVs were on, everyone was silent. Some drunk people were screaming like USA, and I'm like hysterical crying. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, why am I crying? And I mean, I had to take a step back, and I'm like, I'm crying because, here I am thinking like, I'm going to feel so much relief when we got bin Laden, but I didn't. He didn't bring back the people. I'm like, yes, I'm so thankful that we got him and he's gone and he can't hurt any more people, but there's still going to be the next person. It didn't bring back anyone, but Obama's speech was so articulate and so beautiful, and it felt like he was speaking to you, but at the same time, it's like I wanted to see his body, one, obviously, but it's just it didn't bring back. It didn't bring.
It didn't bring your father back at the end of the day.
Right. It didn't bring the happy. I thought I was going to be jubilant. I thought I was going to be happy, and it wasn't. I was like, yeah, and like, and there's KSM sitting in a jail cell in Guantanamo Bay, who beheaded Daniel Pearl, and he was he was bin Laden's second-hand man. He's sitting there happy as can be, getting fed halal every day. He's playing video games over there. He's, not sitting in some cave. He's got beautiful weather there. I mean, yes, it's in a jail cell, but I mean, hell, he gets physical therapy. I mean, when I went there, I felt like I was more of a prisoner. Like,
you went there to go through. You went to that.
I went there for a pretrial.
Okay. Okay.
And because I want to see the death penalty. A lot of people are against it. I am for it. I even asked to be in the room when the lights go out on him. I want, there's 5 of them there. I want the death penalty for them. I think it's ridiculous that they're still alive. He beheaded Daniel Pearl. He is one of the masterminds behind 9/11. Like, there's no reason why they should be alive.
They took all those people's lives and then they're still alive, which is completely ridiculous.
And they have a really good life there because of the Geneva Convention. It's ridiculous.
Yes.
And and I'm not necessarily for the death penalty, which, like, in this country, after what Trump just pulled, just the last couple of weeks, the shit I'm sorry, I shouldn't be cursing, but the stuff he just pulled. But in this situation, this is a federal, and this is terrorist acts. I know I'm like contradicting myself, but it's like with this, I want to be in the room and I want to see the light, because it's like every time I watch those buildings go down, it's like I'm watching the lights go out on my dad, and it's like an eye for an eye, and at the same time, it's like I'm contradicting myself with saying, I didn't feel anything with bin Laden, but I watched him walk in there and he was wearing our military fatigues, which we gave them in the 90s. And he has this orange beard that he dyes with hot sauce. And it's like, just knowing that he's, I just feel like he stands for so much, him being alive. I just, but and then watching the ISIS.
Exactly.
They're more extreme they were too extreme for Al Qaeda.
But bin Laden stated in 2002 in a letter to America for his reasons of causing this, that it was because of basically the U.S. support of the attack of Muslims on different countries. Regardless of whether had this been true or not, or was this justifiable in bin Laden's eyes, because it was not.
Well, when we got to Guantanamo Bay, we were given papers from the 5, I guess I'll call them
murderers,
murderers, saying that they consider beloved 9/11, and they consider 9/11 a badge of honor. That's what it said in the papers. I can send you the 5 pieces after this. I'll email it to you. Absolutely. I have it.
But how does it feel that your family paid the price for whatever he's accusing America of? Did that ever aggravate you? Because those people that he's accusing, those people personally in their family did not pay for that. You
Well,
and three, that was another sad bit.
I had an uncle in the Pentagon that day. He was on the phone with my mother.
Oh, wow.
And he's like, don't worry, Danny's gonna make it out. And then he's like, Kathy, I gotta go. The Pentagon just hit. And then I had an uncle in the White House that day, and then an aunt in the air for American Airlines. And only my father was the one that was killed. But yeah, we ultimately could have really lost a lot of family members. But I mean, yeah, I never looked at it as my dad was I mean, he was like a sacrilegious lamb for this country. And the thing is, I don't really think that, I feel like our government plays a part in it too. They haven't really, they're hiding a lot. Like, we're suing the Saudi government, and this government hasn't really handed over a lot of the papers that we've asked for. They're hiding a lot.
Oh, wow. That's very hard to hear. Very hard to hear. But seeing America before 9/11 and right now, what are some major differences that you noticed?
Oh, well, I mean, security wise, I mean,
I think TSA has bumped up a lot since
yeah,
9/11.
security wise, I mean, people look at everyone differently.
Yeah, absolutely.
People judge people differently. I mean,
You can't really say instead of the tightness on security that there were any
I
definitely.
mean, I don't think, it's horrible to say. I mean, my best friend married someone who's Muslim, and I'm proud of her for doing that. And she's raising her kids Muslim, but
We're not for discriminating against them.
right. But we can't be ignorant to say that people don't, and before this, I think that, I mean, well, I guess the 93 bombing, or was it 93 or 96? No, 93. But I think that after 2001, I think that way too many people look at, Muslims differently, which is ridiculous.
I agree.
They blamed a religion rather than an extreme group.
Mhm.
Um,
Bin Laden doesn't define Muslims. Al Qaeda doesn't define Muslims. ISIS doesn't define
exactly.
Muslims.
Right. But that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to make the religion a segregated group from the world. So they felt isolated, so they would join this group.
Yeah,
That's what the whole point was. I mean, it's awful.
exactly. I agree. I agree. Could you give me a life update how you and your family are doing?
Well, my brothers are good. They're both in Denver. My mom's in Massachusetts.
Wow.
Yeah. Uh,
So are you in nutrition right now or
I
as you
am.
mentioned? Oh, that's
Yes.
awesome. How's that going for you?
Good. I like it. I have clients all over the country, which is nice, and I'm actually able to work from home, which is very nice
Wow.
considering what's going on with COVID.
Where did you say you live
Because
right now?
I literally bounced back from Mass in New York because
Oh,
of COVID. I'm in
nice.
Harlem.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I haven't been to Harlem yet, but I've been to
No?
New York City, but I've been to Harlem. So that is
Yeah.
definitely on my bucket list. But I
Oh,
just
yeah.
really want to thank you for coming out today and sharing your story. I'm so sorry for what you and your family been through, but we wish you a lot of happiness in your future and
Thank
we wish you
you.
all the best. Thank you again, Jessica.
Thank you. And I'll send you those emails.
Absolutely. Can't wait to read them.
Okay.